Bruce, take us out.
So thanks for joining us this afternoon. Today I'm joined by our partners, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the State Attorney's Office. I announced the June 28th arrest of Calvin Dumas, a serial rapist for sexual battery. Dumas's identification as the perpetrator of these heinous crimes results from the forensic use of familial DNA testing. This cold case arrest is a culmination of committed, collaborative work of JSO's Cold Case Unit, Special Assault Unit detectives, Special Victims Unit prosecutors from the State Attorney's Office, and trained forensic DNA analysts from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, all charged to exhaust every investigative and scientific avenue to give victims of sexually motivated crimes the justice they deserve. The case for which Dumas has been arrested occurred in 1998, over 25 years ago. However, investigators have positively identified Dumas as the perpetrator of sexual battery cases from 1995 and 1996, respectively. Out of respect for the victim's privacy rights, I will share no information about the facts and circumstances of these cases. However, I will tell you that Dumas committed these crimes following a largely consistent pattern. He would break into a home at night and sexually batter a woman inside that residence. In the mid to late 1990s, it appears that he was criminally active primarily on Jacksonville's east side and in the Brentwood area of Jacksonville's north side. In each of these three cases, a suspect DNA profile was discovered during the investigations. However, that DNA profile did not match to any known individual in the National Combined DNA Index System, known as CODIS. Investigators knew for sure that one serial rapist committed all these crimes. They just did not know who the serial rapist was. It was through painstaking commitment to running and rerunning the available evidence that forensic analysts were finally able to identify a male relative of Dumas. Through genealogical mapping and deduction, Dumas was identified as a potential suspect. Recently, investigators received a sample of Dumas's DNA and definitively matched his profile to that one of previously unknown serial rapists. Dumas is now in custody where he belongs. Investigators, prosecutors, and forensic analysts will continue to work together to see if they can conclusively identify Dumas as a perpetrator of additional sexual battery cases. In this vein, we're making a public call to women who may, for a variety of reasons, chosen not to report sexual batteries in the past, to look at Dumas's photograph and consider his criminal pattern. If you are a victim of an unreported sexual battery which fits Dumas's criminal pattern, I urge you to contact our sexual assault unit. Likewise, if you are not a survivor, but think that you may know something related to Dumas's serial sexual crimes, please share that information with investigators. At JSO, we fundamentally believe that empowering survivors of sexually motivated crimes is as critical as bringing offenders to justice. We are charged with the responsibility of investigating these horrific, life-altering crimes, and we commit to do so in a way that is victim-centered and trauma-informed. By working with survivors and our partners, we can shine light where there is often darkness and prevent future victimization. There's an adage in the criminal justice system that justice delayed is justice denied. For decades, these survivors have silently cried out for justice. These investigators, forensic analysts, and prosecutors have knitted countless dedicated hours of work with the use of cutting-edge technology, and today, justice is delayed no longer. Before we take questions, I'd like to invite our State Attorney, Melissa Nelson, to make some remarks. Melissa.
Sure, thank you. And thank you all for coming here today. Calvin Dumas is a dangerous serial rapist, and frankly, he's every woman's worst nightmare. In the 90s, he broke into women's homes in the Brentwood and Eastwood neighborhoods at night, held his victims at knife point, covered their faces, and raped them. He targeted single mothers. He told them if they made any noise or reported the crime to the police, he would kill them or kill their children. This was his MO, and these rapes were not his first. He was arrested in 1973 for raping his neighbor, a crime committed with the same MO as these rapes. He was sentenced then to 20 years in prison, but this was long before we had truth in sentencing, and he was released in 1981. He began raping again. For 3 of these rapes, he was only identified just recently when advances in DNA technology allowed for familial DNA testing. We would not be here and Dumas would not be off the streets without the hard work of several people dedicated to the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative and the investigation of sex crimes. And so I'd really like to name a few of these people personally. Detective Lauren Cribbs with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, who has been meticulous in her hard work in this investigation and identified these linked cases as being potentially eligible for familial DNA testing. Marcy Scott with FDLE, who has worked on the Saki grant since day one, and analyst Emily Booth Barron, who shepherded the cases for familial DNA testing. And Assistant State Attorneys Marley Gulliford and Kate Waugh, who have undertaken these kinds of difficult cases and done amazing work. In fact, it was Gulliford and Detective Cribbs who combed through hundreds of case files to identify similar MOs that helped tie these cases together. I echo Sheriff Waters' call to the public for any additional information any of you may have out there about similar rapes in the same time frame in the 90s and in the area of Brentwood and the East Side. So thank you, Sheriff, and to everyone who played a part in this investigation and bringing Dumas to justice.
So with that, we'll answer any questions that we can. I'll reserve DNA questions to Marcy Scott from FDLE. If you have anything, just let me know.
Sheriff, you mentioned that at first the DNA profile didn't match anything at the time. How does that happen, especially if he was arrested in 1973 for similar type of case? Was it just not in the
Advances in DNA, right? So in the early 80s, it's not that it didn't match. We didn't have his profile. You have to have a profile to match it too. We didn't have his profile. So once we get his profile, the detectives then and the state attorney then start working together and looking for these cases to match this MO, and then start running the DNA against DNA in the system, in the CODA system.
Sheriff, just talk about how much of a game changer having this type of technology to find this man, and what's the reaction to some of the survivors in this case that you kept in contact with?
Well, the reaction when it comes to technology is incredible. You know, we go up every year, and I don't make this is not about politics, but we go up every year and we ask for budget money. But we have to increase in our technology and our ability to work this kind of evidence. And if we don't keep up, we fall behind, right? And it's very important for us to be able to do this. And in this case, this is an example of great work, one, boots on the ground work, and then our technology and how that technology is advanced to get us to the point where we are now. And I can tell you that there's going to be there's relief on the part of victims, but maybe we want to know who else may be involved. I mean, not who else may be involved, but what else he may have done. That's very, very important. Because I don't believe this guy stopped at 3. I don't believe he stopped there. I believe there's more, and we'd like to know it because we like to bring him to Melissa's office to face the justice system.
Can you explain again to me the difference between DNA and the profile and how those kind of match up?
I'm gonna let Marcy come up and talk to you about that. Marcy is our expert when it comes to DNA, so we'll let her.
So the DNA profile that was originally developed in this case was a certain type of testing. And then with advancements, we were able to perform a different type of DNA testing. The first is called STRs, the second YSTRs. And using a combination of those two types of testing, there was able to be an association done, which led to the familial match.
Okay, so while that was suspended after some time in the late 90s, you just held on to that evidence. We're able to use that as well as testing.
So in the 80s, DNA testing didn't exist in the early 80s. That came about in the late 80s, and CODIS, the database, didn't start until 1990. So for a lot of these cases, there was nothing that could be done early on when the crime first occurred. And so the samples could be retested using current technology. And Dumas, because of when he committed his crimes, didn't get put into the CODIS database. And so that's why there was never a match made that way. And the match and the association had to be made doing a familial search to a relative of his.
And let me, before you go, let me say this again, because I misspoke. We don't suspect anyone else is involved. I want to make sure I make that clear. We have the bad guy. We want to know about other victims if they exist to come forward and talk to us. Yes, sir.
Sheriff, how much, going back into the past, like the 90s and 80s, saying, well, now with the technology that we have, we can tackle some of these and then keep moving forward.
Anything that we have that has a DNA profile that we've kept, we'll go back and we'll look at, because in all evidence, when it comes to these violent crimes like this, all that evidence is stored. It's stored in a place where it doesn't degrade as quickly, and make sure that we keep it so that we can measure it against other crimes in the past.
In 1996, 1998, were you with JSO at that time? And so, do you remember when these events happened?
I was with JSO, and I joined JSO in 1991 as corrections officer. I don't remember these crimes. I was probably running around in patrol somewhere doing something completely different. So I went to the investigations division in 2005. So that's when I started getting more in tune to this kind of stuff.
Sheriff, when did you guys realize that there was a match? Like, days ago, and then where specifically was it?
Detective, you want to answer that question? You okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
good. It was about, from the time I got the familial match from FDLE, my investigation was about I'd say a month. And then he was arrested at the Golden Corral by our CPR unit.
Sorry, I was gonna say you tracked him down there.
What was that?
What did you track him down from, a surveillance watch or something along those lines? Or how that?
Just, I had some help from family members and other people on where he was in location. And then the last spot we knew of him to be was the Golden Corral. And that's when I made contact with our CPR unit to pick him up.
How surprised was he? Because I'm guessing some of these people don't know that they're about to be arrested.
He was pretty surprised. He wasn't expecting us to come knocking at that point, but
Has he said anything? Did he mess up?
no, sir.
What was your initial reaction when you got that match? Okay, you have a guy here.
Oh, I was excited. I mean, I went straight to my sergeant and lieutenant, and we got the ball rolling on DNA search warrant and all that kind of stuff to get him behind bars.
And that's an absolute reason to be excited. To get someone, a predator, off our streets like that, it's a great reason to be excited. And Ryan, we're very good at catching people when we know how to do it. So we're pretty good at it.
Is it often though when this happens after that much time that they think maybe the trail's gone cold and there's no heat on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you go a certain amount of time and nothing happens, you probably get a little comfortable and believing that you've gotten away with it. I think that's logical to believe, but evidenced by the fact that she says he was very surprised when they caught him. It's good stuff. I love it.
Is there a timeline on prosecuting sexual crimes? So the person was a victim in 1996. Can they come forward today?
Yes, they can come forward, and actually part of the reason that we're behind a podium and asked you all to come here today is to send the message to the public. I agree with the sheriff. This wasn't a one-time thing and it wasn't a three-time thing. People don't rape just once. He is a serial rapist. He has a history that precedes the ones that we are announcing and arresting today. And so we believe there are more. And so that's why we're calling on potentially victims or people who may know a victim with that match. His MO is very narrow. So if anybody has information and didn't report, as we mentioned, he threatened his victims that he would kill them if they reported to the police. So we have a well-founded belief that there are more rapes, and that's why we're asking the public for any information they may have to provide investigators and detectives so that we can follow up on it.
Is there a statute of limitations on these rapes?
There can be, depending on the facts and circumstances. In the case that he's been arrested on, he's not barred by the statute of limitations on the surviving victim. We have a victim who is alive, living, and we will be prosecuting him. I don't know what mugshot you have, but the one from June, I assume.
Anything else?
What area of town did this happen in? How many women, I should say, my bad, how many women are there that you identified, or how many women have come forward?
It happened on the east side, on the east side in the Brentwood area. And we'll just keep the rest of that stuff confidential. All right, thank y'all.
Sheriff,